Kirk Cousins has been a member and the starting quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings for 4 seasons now, and on Sunday night, the Minnesota Vikings got embarrassed in front of the nation when they lost with a score of 37-10 against the Green Bay Packers, and were led by veteran backup quarterback Sean Mannion, only for Kellen Mond, the rookie, to come in for a single series, go 3 and out, in which a pass was nearly a pick six, and for Sean Mannion to re-enter the ballgame a possession later. And in today's video, we are going to be discussing the last 4 years. It's more than just Kirk Cousins, it's more than Mike Zimmer, it's more than Rick Spielman. No one blame as to why the Minnesota Vikings have had a lot of failure over 4 years falls on one man. And in today's video, we are going to summarize 4 years of frustration and 4 years of what I guess could be described as failure, because the goal is to win a Super Bowl title, and ultimately that did not happen. I sent out a tweet that said I will be having a video that's a rant on the Minnesota Vikings. This obviously is the video, and where most videos I have a script and where I spend a lot of time typing a script, today it's free-flowing, it's from the heart, it's going to be everything as to why I'm frustrated with the Minnesota Vikings. So guys, I hope you enjoy, and without further ado, let's begin. So the first thing I'd like to discuss is Minnesota Vikings fans. They are, and I play a part in this at times, we all do occasionally, they're very critical of Kirk Cousins. And while Kirk is an above-average quarterback, I mean, he's not an average quarterback no matter how you slice it. The man has 121 touchdowns over the past 4 seasons and is the only quarterback since 2015 to have 25 or more passing touchdowns in every year. Let's call that what it is. Average quarterbacks do not put up those numbers routinely as Kirk does. Now, what's kind of frustrating and what's kind of the name of the game when being a Kirk Cousins fan or a Minnesota Vikings fan, as you guys could probably guess, I have those numbers in my back pocket at all times because, you know, you get so used to defending Kirk Cousins, so used to saying Kirk's this, Kirk's that, when people say, oh, Kirk sucks, and a lot of the time that is based on the eye test, but Kirk over the past 4 years has, it's either the 4th or 5th most passing touchdowns in that span, so to call him average again would simply be wrong. And what annoys me the most is whenever people say, oh, well, Kirk's contract limits what the Vikings can do, and that's 2 things. 1, flat out wrong, and B, a bad take, because since Kirk signed that contract, the initial one, not the contract extension during what was COVID, or right when COVID started in March of 2020, I just want to kind of, take a trip down memory lane as to who else the Vikings re-signed during that time period. So Kirk signed his contract on March 14th, 2018. 3 years, $84 million, and all of it was guaranteed. And because all of it was guaranteed, it was groundbreaking numbers at the time. It just was, right? But later that summer, before they played their very first game of the 2018 season, it was time for the 2015 draft class, who would have been entering their 4th years of their careers, for those players to get contract extensions. We're talking about players that would eventually become a first-team All-Pro, like Stephon Diggs, who was a first-team All-Pro in 2020, who received a 5-year, $72 million deal, an average of $14 million per year. He was coming off of the Minneapolis Miracle at the time. We're talking about 3rd-round pick in 2015, Danielle Hunter, getting a $70+ million extension in his own rights, again, an average of $13 or $14 million per year. And we are talking about my favorite player, Eric Kendricks, who was a 2015 2nd-round pick, who received a 5-year, $50 million contract extension in his own rights, an average of obviously $10 million per year. So this whole take of Kirk Cousins' contract limits what the Vikings could do, it's just bad. There's really no other way to say it here, guys. I'm pretty much having a podcast type video today, but it's just a bad take, right? So then we go to the 2019 offseason. Adam Thielen gets an extension. He gets a 4-year, $64 million contract extension, with 35 of that being guaranteed. There's a lot more contract extensions that we're going to get into. Now, Xavier Rhodes and Trey Waynes were 2 corners that were going to be due for a re-signing with the Vikings. Neither got it, because it's not an exaggeration to say Xavier Rhodes in 2019 would give up a 20-yard pass to whoever he was covering, and I'm not kidding. Vikings fans, you know where I'm going with this. He would give up a 20-yard pass, get injured, or, he'd re-injure his hamstring every single game, or re-injure whatever it was, walk off for 2 or 3 plays, and then go back on. And Trae Waynes has been nothing short of a disappointment for Cincinnati since he signed a $42 million deal with them after the 2019 season. And Trae Waynes, since signing that contract with the Bengals, has 8 career tackles with them and has played 4 games out of 32 possible games. So while the Bengals did win a division title, and congratulations to them doing so, by the way, how pissed would the Minnesota Vikings fan base be if they gave a corner $14 million per year for him to play 4 games in 2 years? So for everyone that wants to criticize Spielman for something as minuscule as trading a 4th-round pick for Chris Herndon that was deemed to be at time an emergency because we had a tight end go down for the year in Irv Smith Jr., I feel like you have to give credit to Rick for not giving Trae Waynes stupid money when the Times very easily could have called for that, and Rick let Trae Waynes walk at the time, which proved to be a great decision. Now, corner Xavier Rhodes wore out his welcome. He had a terrific 2016-17 and for most of 2018 as well, but after the 2019 season, I mean, guys, you know this, he had to go. As for other contract extensions that the Vikings had during this time, or even free agent signings, they signed running back Dalvin Cook to a $60 million deal despite their quarterback's contract holding everything up and not allowing them to do anything else with their money. As we said, Adam Thielen signed a deal worth $16 million per year. Harrison Smith signed a 4-year deal worth $64 million. Anthony Barr signed a $60+ million deal. Eventually got restructured and everything, but what contract at this point really doesn't get restructured after it signs? They went out and signed defensive tackle Michael Pierce in free agency to a 3-year, $27 million deal. Obviously, that's kind of had mixed results since the signing. And they signed defensive tackle Dalvin Tomlinson to a 2-year, $22 million deal. So for a team that's restricted by their quarterback, I think it's safe to say, obviously that's a narrative, it's safe to say they've signed and re-signed pretty much everybody that they wanted to. Nobody has walked on them in free agency that the Vikings did not want to keep or that they simply let walk, like Trae Waynes, like Xavier Rhodes. And other players that they re-signed, they gave a tackle during the middle of the year this year or in July, I'm not sure when the Brian O'Neill extension happened, but they gave one of the most underrated right tackles in all of football a $90+ million deal in Brian O'Neill. And this is all under Kirk's supposed, we can't do anything because we're locked up with his contract. So this is one narrative that I just truly hate because it's not true. Just deep dive even a little bit and you will find out that, again, it's not true. And this is also not mentioning that they gave Patrick Peterson $10 million for the 2021 season. Really one of the only players the Vikings didn't re-sign over the past couple of years because they truly couldn't afford what he wanted was Eric Wilson, a linebacker who was signed by the Philadelphia Eagles in free agency. Wilson had something along the lines of 120+ tackles, and credit to him, he was one of the few true bright spots in the 2020 Minnesota Vikings defense in what was an absolutely atrocious unit under, again, defensive guru Mike Zimmer. But Wilson, and this proved to be smart on Spielman's part for him to not give him money. The Eagles literally released Eric Wilson midway through the 2021 season, not even a full year into what they paid him to do, which was play linebacker. So for all of this, Kirk's contract limits the Vikings. Again, I ask, how really does it do that? It doesn't limit them at all. They haven't re-signed anybody or haven't gone after anybody they didn't want to because of his contract. And one thing I want to ask here is, hypothetically, for those Vikings fans out there that just hate Kirk and wanted to keep Case Keenum, say you keep Case Keenum and you have Case under, I don't know, maybe a 3-year, $54 million deal, because Case surely would have been paid after his 2017 season. Maybe you pay Case, that $18 million is what 3 years, 54 works out to be. Maybe you pay him $15 million a year, maybe you pay him $14 a year, maybe whatever, right? You have less than $28 million per year is what I'm getting at. What free agents do you go and target? Do you want to go and target Kenny Golladay, who got $18 million per year and has been nothing short of a dud for the New York Giants? What free agent do you go out and truly target with that money? It's a concept that people create because they think that there's this glory, that the grass is greener on the other side, and it's like, okay, who do you go out and target with this extra money? And the answer is, I mean, even if you get a free agent or two, there's a reason why Case has been a career backup, and there's a reason why he lost his starting job when he went out to Denver. Because, shocker here, Case Keenum is a career backup that had a career year when he played for the Minnesota Vikings. Case, since then, he threw 18 touchdowns and 15 interceptions in his year in Denver, and in that year, they went 6-10. It's what Case created in 2017 was the peak of his life, and he will never create that again. And if that hasn't been shown over the past 4 years since Keenum has not been a member of the Minnesota Vikings, I really don't know what does, and you may be blinded by your love for Case Keenum if you still think he was the answer. That would have been a million times worse had we went with Keenum. And what I'm saying is it's just like, Kirk will be missed when he's gone, because you don't get 120 touchdowns in 4 years. You know, you don't go buy that at the supermarket like you go buy whatever. And the constant criticism that Kirk gets is obnoxious, and it's like Vikings fans are going to miss him when he leaves, because Kirk, again, is a good quarterback. You know, all Vikings fans wanted for years, whenever we had Matt Castle, Josh Freeman, Teddy Bridgewater, there's one more, Christian Ponder was the guy I couldn't think of, Brooks Bollinger, you know, all these guys, may he rest in peace, Tavares Jackson, Gus Frerotte, all these players between 2007 and 13 minus Brett Favre. Of course, I'll mention John David Booty in there, who was a career backup, but all these guys were nowhere near what Kirk Cousins is, and it's, you know, you finally get a quarterback, and all you do is trash him, you know, really degrade him on social media because of his views on a vaccination. Obviously, him not playing because he's not vaccinated was unfortunate, yes, but again, that's his decision. I'm not getting more into it, I'm leave it at that, but to constantly just degrade him and his family and tweet Kirk Cousins should do this and that, and it's like, bro, what more do you want from him other than what he's done on the field? Sure, a couple more wins would be nice. I'm not disputing that. But how much of that goes on Kirk? Does Kirk Cousins kick the ball in Arizona this year? Sorry, Greg Joseph, but does Kirk kick that ball? Does Kirk determine a fumble in Cincinnati in week 1 in which Dalvin Cook was down? Does Kirk Cousins blow lead after lead? No. Right? That goes on Zim more than it goes on Kirk. So it's like, what more do you want from him other than him to do his job? Now, obviously, Kirk has his games, and obviously people talk about the eye test with players, and Kirk is kind of, in a way, the perfect example of that, because Kirk statistically is a good quarterback. But Kirk also has times where you're just like, you know, you're screaming at the TV like, Kirk, get rid of the ball, or it's just like, you know, a sack's coming, and you know it's coming as a Vikings fan. And I'll quickly highlight those games. 2018, the Buffalo game was horrible. Everyone knows it. But to at least kind of be fair to not only Kirk, but the team, as they got smoked by 21 points at US Bank Stadium that day, there was a lot going on. It was like a day after Everson Griffin had a huge mental health, you know, burst, if you want to call it that, and it was just not a good time for not only Everson, but for the team, and I do think that obviously carried over that next day. 2019, week 2 against Green Bay, Kirk made a horrific decision on first or second and goal with an interception. We all know that. 2020, the true bad game of the year was that Falcons game in which the Vikings were down at a point like 40-15. It was just, yeah, it was a bad game. And in 2021, the true bad game for Kirk was that Cooper Rush game in which the Vikings lost to a backup quarterback, in which they probably would have beat Dak Prescott. I mean, it's very Vikings to say that. I don't think that's actually even going all that out of the way to say they could have beat Dak but lost to Cooper Rush. It's just typical things that happen to the Vikings, right? But for the Vikings over the past 4 years, it's just seemingly a break here, a break there, and you know, I hate to see that it ends like this. It's been an up and down 4 years with Kirk, and I think everyone knew that was going to come, especially in Washington. Everyone always takes pride in how, you know, they knew Kirk was not going to lead us to a Super Bowl, but it's like, how miserable do you have to be to actively root against a player to better his family? But, you know, it's whatever. That's a completely different conversation. But I just wanted to kind of get my chest, you know, my thoughts off my chest here in today's video. And if you're still watching, by the way, I appreciate you listening to me ramble for going on 14 minutes. But it's been an up and down 4 years, and there's honestly a lot I feel like I didn't get into in today's video. So if you're still here, and if you like content like this, let me know. Comment below what you think about today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Now is the time I ask you to like the video and subscribe to the channel. But you know what? Have a good day. Be safe. Love you guys. Happy New Year.